I'm going to show some excerpts of a work in progress. I've been working on this past month in Rotterdam with a filmmaker, Mikki Sindhunata, who's based there, and we worked in the V2 lab for unstable media, which was very exciting. We got to work with some programs and algorithms, and yeah, Emma De Filippo helped us out a little bit, so you'll just see a little bit of the process and the work behind it. Yeah. Yes, my question is, what can be found in a count of 8? And turn. Does the back one? Thank you. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 2, 4, 6, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 4, 8, 1, 4, 5, 5, 6, 7, 8, 1, 4, 5, 8, 7, 8. Then they looked at me. 6, 7, 8. Then me. 7. Then they looked. 6, 7, 8. Then 2 looked. 4, 5, 8. Then 4 looked. 2, 5, 7. Then they looked. 6, me. Then 2 looked at me. Then they looked at me. Then they looked at me. For a few brief minutes, that's all we did. Look at each other. For a few brief minutes, look. I've saved the list of items found in the room, marked them down: the lamp, chair, table, chair, lamp, the chair, the table, the chair, the table, the eyes lit up as they had done every night. But when I turned around behind the lamp, their slippery and oily look followed behind me over my shoulder, looking from the chair, table, the chair that was balancing on one of its rear legs. The chair playing a dramatic soundtrack in counts of 8. It was then that I understood that it was their eyes that were looking at mine for the first time. For a few brief minutes, that's all we did, look. All we did, look at two each. I walked over to the dressing table. Step one, stepping, I open my eyes. I open my eyes. So, I've come up with a plan. It begins by placing ourselves in a lineage, a series of numbers, if you will. To do so, let's first trace a history, any sort. Let's take the history of castles, for example, or monasteries, if you will. So I'll begin by saying that we focus on an architecture of shadows. With our nimble fingers, we can weave beads into crowns and thus words into stones. I'll begin, okay? She woke up one morning, looking from the chair still balancing one of its rear legs, balancing. I look up, looking from the chair, balancing rear legs. Then they looked at me. Hey! Can you play something more dramatic? They whispered to themselves. In my mirror-framed view, her eyes held the kind of energy that ends movies. An orchestral crescendo crashing towards me, you, me, chair. Meanwhile, I'm busy forming a crown, and it's dripping with blood and the beads are metallic and they're round. The beads fall down the tight thread, knocking into one another. Slowly, I string 2, 3, string 4, 5, they fall further, and I watch them lay in this castle, weaving these threads. By the way, this castle I mention is actually made of stones stolen from an architectural archive, cross-referencing multiple storylines, and you can check this reference with me later if you must. So, here's the list of items from the archive. Item 1, castle stones, material, object, taken from the words of stories. These stories rise with the sun and with dark thoughts. These dark perceptions also constitute nets and cradles woven, strung like hammocks beneath this tower. Item 2, nets and cradles, material, object, functional. These webs, I assume, function as an aid in catching a fall. She looks down and sees this web of material, keeping this tower afloat, an architectural support. Item 3, beneath the nets exists the tower's circular moat. Meanwhile, as I'm saying this, they continue walking over to the dressing table, appearing in the circular glass of the mirror. Could you play something more more dramatic. So, I've decided to let the four walls of this tower go. I've decided to crumble beneath the turnstiles and to find myself jumping in, out of the bubbling tar, flooding the moat that's surrounding this castle. Update. I've come up with an escape plan. Well, it's almost too dramatic now, no? Sorry, I haven't forgotten about you, by the way. You see, when I do escape, I've planned my routine of action, and I've actually laid it out. Here's the list. So far, I've gotten as far as number 2. So, the escape plan. Step 1. Scan the moat and its surroundings for numbered clues. Step 2. Close your eyes. Breathe and ground your pelvis into the earth, releasing into the gravity of the tower's floorboards. You see, a good posture is necessary to prepare the body for potential action. Side note, can you actually be grounded if stuck on the 100th floor of a castle tower? / did she really feel the pee hidden amongst the floorboards? Anyway, back to the proposed escape plan. Step 3. Well, so at this point in the plan, I'm actually improvising in assuming that the numbers embroidered in the flags hidden in the moat would actually lead us to the next step. The numbers, or so I've heard, are actually made from the same metallic pen that would be written on lottery cards found in some distant horizon. Numbers coded on scratch-offs, thrown in the streets, same fully paved streets, streets that were written about in the words of books you hid away. The same ones that were written about in another text, another novel, another page. Calls, shrieks, I assume, are still the same. The curses continued. I'm also assuming that at this point, you will be noticing a pattern in these numbers as you fall further away from the castle walls, away from the floor marked with her strings and beads, and the lamp with a long resting hand and the long slippery looks, and further towards the words of fictions, fables, realities, but numbers seem to line up, switch, whole, worlds, on, switching, light, into night. And still, these numbers fade faster than the stories they collect, vacuum into their lineage. And the grand tales, published journals, grand histories move away from these worlds, just as you move by falling